Hello. Happy Sunday. Happy Sunday. Welcome to another Mindset Live with yours truly, Jamil. And I'm excited. I'm excited for today. I'm excited about the topic. I'm excited for life and I'm excited for you. There's so much goodness happening out there in the world. We just have to open our eyes and see it. Sweet. So, how you guys doing? It's been a minute since we've had one of these. If you've missed these Sunday Mindset Lives, do me a favor and let me know in the chat. If you come here every Sunday hoping there's going to be one, and then the odd Sundays that I don't have them, it's disappointing. I need a little bit of accountability from y'all to remind me or to kick my butt into gear that it's that there's people counting on me and I got to get my butt in the chair and do the work. In case you guys have been curious, I have been enjoying my life as of late, and so in a new relationship, and that's been taking up some time, which I'm extremely grateful for and enjoying. But this really is my love. I love personal development. I love working on myself. And I love sharing the insights that I gain in my pursuit of higher understanding and higher learning with all of you so that we can do this together. All right. So, what are we going to chat about today? Well, funny enough, right? I have obviously been on a path over the last year of self discovery and development. Many of you are aware that I had some turbulence in 2023, 2024. And it was very difficult for me to kind of overcome that and get to the place that I'm at right now. But I want to share with you guys some key insights and takeaways that I gained from that because, I have come to the understanding and belief system that on the other side of the really hard stuff is where all of the good things come. But you cannot get to that good spot unless you're ready to face the challenges and the patterns and the ways that we step in our own way. And unless you can actually face that, unless you can overcome that and be in those moments of terribleness and actually looking at yourself and seeing how you have participated in much, if not all, of your life circumstances, that you really come to that place where you can accept and move on. And in all of that, I was led to two books that I want to highlight today. The first being The Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer, and the second book being The Magic of Surrender by Kurt Blackson. If any of you have read either of those books, I would love for you to let me know in the chat. Again, the first one is The Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer, and the second book, The Magic of Surrender by Kurt Blackson. And let's dive into this concept of surrender, because as Americans, the word itself can sometimes trigger resistance. And I believe the reason why it triggers resistance in us is because that we are inherently hardwired to persevere. We're inherently hardwired to fight against extermination, right? We have a mechanism within us, the fight or flight response, which is entirely there to keep us alive, to keep us from perishing. And often that means it is the antithesis of surrender, right? If we are here to fight, if we're supposed to carry on and persevere, then in our Western understanding of the word surrender, that has a juxtaposition and it doesn't necessarily align. Yet, what I have learned is that it is through surrender that you get to your highest potential, is where you find your most incredible victories. And so that is a paradox in and of itself. And so I want to at least share with you my understanding of the concept of surrender. What does it mean to surrender? Now, often you've, I'm sure, heard from people who are navigating the seas of life that in order to really gain something, if there is a desire in your heart that you're trying to achieve, you have to not only let that go, right? Release the expectation of a result, release the cleanness of the wanting and the needing, and put forth what some have called effortless action, which again is a paradox in and of itself, because how can you have effortless action? Like, what does that even mean, to strive yet to release expectation? And there is this delicate balance in wanting to push forward and strive and achieve and do things, and not being attached to the result of it happening. And you hear this quite often with people who are looking for love in their life, a romantic relationship, and their friends will tell them, when you stop looking is when the right person will find you. And there's a lot of truth in that. But if we want to take a step back and see that from the perspective of our entrepreneurial journeys, many of you can resonate with the thought or with the principle that when you are holding on to your success with this iron fist, with this need, this necessity, what ends up happening is it gets farther and farther and farther away from you. Just like chasing a dog. If a dog gets free in your home and it starts running down the street, the last thing you want to do is chase the dog, right? The dog will just keep running and running and running. It thinks it's playing a game with you. And so if you want the dog to come back, you typically stop and move in the opposite direction, and it'll start following you. So why is this game the way that it is? Why are things rigged in such a manner that we have to play this game of coyness, of not wanting in order for things to happen? And I believe that's so that we can find the flow in life, right? How many of you have ever experienced this, where you've wanted something so bad, you've wanted to hold on to something so bad that you ended up strangling it, like crushing it? And this could have been in a relationship, it could be in a friendship, it could be in a business venture, it could be in some professional pursuit. But when you want something entirely where it is just all consuming, you hold on to it so tightly that you end up strangling it of all oxygen, and it doesn't allow itself to breathe, and it ends up leaving you. It ends up dying. And that's a real thing, right? It happens in love relationships, and it absolutely happens in entrepreneurship. And we can find examples of this for those of you who are in real estate that follow me for that reason. That ever elusive first deal for so many people. It's so interesting that that first deal can take sometimes 6 months, sometimes a year, sometimes even longer than that, sometimes 2 years. Yet once you have overcome that first deal reality, once it's happened for you, the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, 10th, 100th, 1000th literally just ends up naturally occurring. And so why is it so that it takes so long to get one deal done, yet 100 after that can be done without much effort? Like, how does that make any sense? Because if you think about it, the effort that it takes to do the first deal is the same amount of effort that it takes to do the second or the 100th. But the second, third, fourth, fifth, 100th are so much easier. And it's because in that first deal, before that actually ends up happening for us, we are typically maneuvering without a lot of trust. We're maneuvering without a lot of faith. And we are putting so much attention, and we're putting so much emphasis on the result of something happening that we tend to chase it away. And I want to come back to and really unpack why it is that we're chasing that thing away. Why, when we want something so bad, does it end up leaving us? Well, it's because of the energy that is associated with that need. And I want you guys to think about when in your life you have wanted something so bad, so bad that it became an obsession, yet you just couldn't get your hands around it because you were exuding an energy of lack, an energy of scarcity. Now, again, we know from quantum physics, through the law of energetics, through vibration and frequency, that when we are exuding a frequency of lack, that when we are exhibiting a vibration of not having, of scarcity, then what ends up happening outside of us is we draw to us experiences and realities that are in alignment with what we are. We don't find in life the thing we want, we find in life the thing we are. And that's why so many of us who have tried affirmations have found that they don't work. If you've ever tried affirmations in the morning and you stared at yourself in the mirror and you said all these, fun things like you're amazing, you're 6 foot tall, you have a six pack, I am a bajillionaire, all those affirmations, right? You can sit there and stare at yourself in the mirror and say all of these incredible things. But if you don't believe them, then how are they supposed to manifest? Words are hollow. Talk is cheap. And we know that. We know that talk is cheap from just our interactions with other people in the world. When you've got lots of talking and not enough doing and not enough being, and examples of people actually following through with the thing they're saying, we really understand just the hollowness of a lot of the experience that we have in our day-to-day lives. And we do the same thing to ourselves, right? If we are capable of lying to others, then that also means that we're just as capable of lying to ourselves. And that also means that we're just as capable of lying to our creator. And that should cut deep. It should. And I'm going to give you some examples of when we're doing that. I've heard some incredible justifications for a victim mindset in my day. As being a coach and helping people in this path of entrepreneurship and becoming a real estate investor, I've heard so many reasons why someone can't. Why somebody can't make a certain number of phone calls, why somebody can't comp a certain number of homes, why somebody can't make a certain number of offers a day. And all of them tend to be externally driven excuses, reasons that allow us to lay in an energy of victimhood. What's even more interesting to me is that those same people who have given me their victim story, if you were to ask them truly what they believe is the reason for what has happened in their life, they'll repeat and parrot that same victim story. In fact, I bet that if you were to listen in to their inner dialogue and the dialogue that they may have with God, that same lie would persist. So let me ask you, if we're willing to lie to God, if we're willing to lie to ourselves, then we're absolutely okay to lie to other people. And that's the part where I think everything kind of changes. So let's take the example of your first deal again, right? You may have an excuse that you have too many obligations in your household. Your W-2 job is taking away too many hours of your day. Your spouse, your significant other doesn't believe in you, and they're constantly letting the air out of your dreams. reminding you why what you're doing is a waste of time. And maybe outside of just your significant other, the same thing is happening with your friend circle. And you can find all of these external reasons, all of these external pieces, all of these outside of yourself triggers that are keeping you from your success. But it's not until you come to terms with the reasons why you're allowing that you can actually find the solution to what's going on. Our capacity to BS ourselves is a defense mechanism. We lie to ourselves so that we don't destroy our egos. We tell ourselves a story of righteousness so that we don't have to face the reality of our wretchedness. And the reason why we do that is because we have an inherent belief that our wretchedness is, for whatever reason, not a divine creation. That the aspects of ourselves that maybe we're not so proud of, those things that we have harbored shame for, or that we hold guilt for, that those pieces, that those vulnerabilities, that those weaknesses, or that humanity isn't just as beautiful as the courage that we have, as the love that we have, and our capacity to connect and be kind to one another. And so we want to hold on to, and we want to focus in our understanding of ourselves onto those really shiny, beautiful things that would make the glossy magazine cover of ourselves. But those secrets, those realities, those weaknesses, those little aspects of ourselves that we may think aren't the greatest, we hide under the bed. We sweep under the rug and we pretend they don't exist. And that is deception. That's lying. That's absolute lying to ourselves. It's lying to God. That's lying to the people around us. And because we're so able to do that, when it comes time to take responsibility for what we have and what we don't have in our lives, it's just as easy for us to tell ourselves a story. Now, I want to give you guys an interesting story of the connectivity between all of us. And this is a really funny thing that just happened to my sister and I while we were in Oregon. My sister and I went on a trip to Portland, Oregon, and we wanted to go visit some waterfalls. Just brother and sister. We left, she left her spouse at home. I didn't invite my girlfriend. We just went, the two of us, and we wanted to connect. We try to do a trip like that once a year, brother and sister, just to have a good time and to remind ourselves that we love each other and that we are each other's best friend. And so we went on some interesting food journeys that trip as well. And we ended up finding ourselves one day in downtown, standing in line for these really special donuts. I think the place is called Voodoo Donut. Anyhow, we passed by a homeless person on our way to this donut store. And my sister, being who she is, makes friends with this person, starts talking to them, and asked if they would be interested in a donut. And while we, and he said, yeah, I want one of those glazed donuts with that are dipped in chocolate. He wanted a chocolate dipped donut. And he said, while you guys are out there, there's a coffee shop down the street from that place. Bring me a mocha as well. And so, cool, right? We go to the donut shop. We get ourselves a donut. We get our friend a donut. We go to the coffee shop, get ourselves a couple of coffees, and we get him a mocha, and we come back and we deliver the items to her new friend. And they have a couple-minute conversation, and, that's it. Didn't think about it again. We go in our car, and then we end up having our day out hiking these different waterfalls. And at the end of the day, her and I decide to go and have Indian food for dinner, right? Indian food is an acquired taste. Not a lot of people who are not, ethnically Indian can handle the spice or, some of the dishes. If you've ever eaten Indian food and gotten sick, that you'll understand what I mean. But again, it's an acquired taste, right? And being East Indian myself, I really do enjoy it. Reminds me of mom's cooking. And so, of course, there we are. We decide to go to dinner at an Indian restaurant. Now, we finish dinner and there's quite a bit of food left over. And I say to my sister, hey, why don't we pack the food up and go see if we can find somebody to give the leftovers to who needs dinner. And she said, oh, that's a great idea. But then I'm like, well, you know what? This is Indian food. And I don't know if they're going to really appreciate what we've ordered here because it's like, it's Indian food. You know what I mean? Like, who's going to know how to even eat this stuff? And she's like, don't worry. I'll explain to them what to do. Like, you gotta eat this sauce with this bread, and you gotta eat this thing with that thing. And there's a whole sequence to it all, right? And so as we were in the car, I realized that there's really no one that's homeless in the area that we're in where the Indian restaurant was. And I make the suggestion of us driving back to where we were earlier in the morning and giving that food to her friend, the homeless guy that we had given the donut and the coffee to. And she's like, that's a great idea. Let's go. And the drive over there was like 20 minutes away. We're totally just going out of our way to do this. But it was like super random, right? That this guy just pops back into my head that I'm going to go and deliver this Indian food to him. So we get there. And I said to her again, hey, don't forget, you got to explain how to eat this because he's going to put the dessert on the wrong thing. She's like, don't worry about it. I got it. And she's walking away in her high heels down this little street. And she's gone like a couple of minutes. And I'm starting to get a little bit stressed out because it's the middle of downtown. She's going to go talk to homeless people. She's wearing like her Hillary Clinton suit. I only say that not because of politics, but because my sister loves a pantsuit, much like our, she's not my friend, but that lady who ran for president. Anyways, sister likes a good pantsuit. And so she comes back and she's in tears. And I'm wondering, what happened? And so she sits down in the car and I said, what's going on? Was he there? And she said, no, he wasn't there. And I'm like, oh, then, why do you got tears in your eyes? She said, you'll never believe who was there. I'm like, what? She's like, well, as I'm walking up, I start hearing somebody speaking in Hindi, which is an Indian dialect. She's like, and as I get closer, I see there's this little person just curled up in a blanket, and they're speaking to themselves in Hindi. And my sister is like tapping this person on the shoulder, and this woman, this Indian woman, looks up at my sister and starts speaking in Hindi, and my sister, starts communicating with her. And she said, hey, are you hungry? And the woman's face is like she just seen a ghost. She's like, I brought you some food. And the woman's looking at my sister like, where did you just come from? And she starts opening it all up and she just breaks down into tears. Because she had asked that if God was real, that he would send her Indian food. And she was like bawling her eyes out. I just want you to think of how crazy that is. Okay? That morning started her and I going on a journey to go get some donuts, which then turned into getting that mocha for the dude and all of his crazy, I want a mocha, give me the chocolate dip donut, all the things, and our joking about, him and how they had become friends, to then us going choosing Indian for dinner that night, like seemingly random, right? seemingly random, to us then ordering specific dishes, to then it being too much food so that we pack it up, to not finding anybody to give that food to in our immediate vicinity, to then having the random idea that I thought, the random idea to drive 20 minutes in the opposite direction of where we were going to go find her friend that we had met in the morning to give this food to. Yet the entire thing was orchestrated for the benefit of that girl. Our morning coffee, our donut choice, what we had for dinner that night, and all of that was an orchestra to prove to that girl that God was real. Think of that. Think of that. And I mean, when I understood it and realized just how insane that was, how like all of the things that caused from the, I mean, the timing was impeccable. It was impeccable. All of it. All of it. I am thinking that I'm making all of these decisions on my own. Right? That like the choice, the food, the order, all of the things that in some reality, I'm the driver of that car, yet the facts are it's never been me. That girl laying in that spot called us to her. Her soul called us to her so that she could have that testimony. And God knows what that moment is doing for her right now. Right? What is that moment doing for her right now? And so why do I tell you this story? Why did I bring it up? Because when we're grasping onto things, when we're holding on to things for dear life, like they're going to leave us, that's us not believing that what is ours will be ours. That's us not believing and having faith in the divine being in orchestra with us, that we are not in a collaborative story with our Creator. Every time that we grasp, every time that we lie, every time that we cheat, every time that we steal, every time that we do the thing that is out of harmony, that is out of sync, that when we double down on our separateness from our Creator, that when we buy into the lie that we are not all connected, then when we buy into the lie that we are not all one, then when we buy into the lie that our Creator does not want our ultimate benefit and our ultimate success, that we are all here for a divine purpose to be of service to one another, and that every one of us deserves a life that is full of abundance and love, that every single time that we buy into the lie that that's not true, it's a prayer to evil, in my opinion. When we deny ourselves that reality, it's a prayer to evil. It is a prayer to disconnect. And so my ask is, what are you holding on to with dear life right now that you are so unsure of that God has you? What are you grasping onto right now? Where are you in denial of your connection to God? That girl called us to her from that morning. From that morning, Our actions of the entire day led us to that place at that time for that realization for her to have. The universe does not respond to your desperation, it responds to your vibration and frequency. That's it. And so if you right now are in a situation that isn't ideal for what your desires are, then you need to look at it and you need to be honest with how you've brought that into your life. I want to share with you guys another example of what I just shared with you. Now, many of you guys know that I've been wholesaling for over 20 years. And in Phoenix, Arizona itself, I have wholesaled over 7,000 homes. 7,000 homes. Imagine that. And I'm not, how do I express this? I'm happy that I've been able to have so much success as a wholesaler, and I'm grateful for the position that I've held in the beautifying of neighborhoods and of homes. But I have to be realistic about the social impact of what wholesaling 7,000 homes has had on the community that I live in. Now, for many of you who understand what wholesaling is, it's where we take a house that is in disrepair, original condition, or in distressed condition, and we sell that to another investor who's then going to force appreciation on it by remodeling it and then selling it on the open market for a family to use. But the end result of what happens in that process is the home gets more expensive. So if we're going to really look at my impact that I've had on the community here in Phoenix, I've made over 7,000 homes more expensive. That's a reality. About a year and a half ago, I was walking in my neighborhood and I noticed a minivan parked off on a street not too far away from where I live. And the minivan caught my attention for one of two reasons. First being it was old and really run down, and it didn't seem like it belonged in the neighborhood. The second reason why it caught my attention is it was a Ford Astro van. And many of you know that I'm the founder of a little real estate wholesaling group called Astro Flipping. And so, Astro, it took my attention and it caught my eye because it was an Astro van, and I haven't seen an Astro van since like the early 2000s. And so I noticed the van as I'm walking my dog. A couple days later, I ended up leaving my home a little bit earlier than I would normally walk because I had to start my day earlier that day. And as I was walking by that area where the van parks, I noticed that the van was live. All the doors were open, the trunk was open, and there were people outside of it. And I seen a man standing outside of the van, and he was straightening himself out, putting on a suit. And I also noticed that in the trunk of the van was a woman and a couple of kids. And they were playing. They were kind of just all being with each other. And so this trunk is open. We got this lady sitting there in the back part of the van playing with the kids. And the dad is kind of straightening himself up, getting himself ready for work. And I can't help it. I walk over and I start talking to these guys. And at first, they weren't interested in communicating with me. I think they were thinking I was there to cause them trouble or to ask them to not park where they were parking, whatever it was. They have obviously been harassed by people in the past, and they weren't interested in hearing any BS from me. But when I shared that I wasn't there for any trouble, that I was really just curious and wondering, what their story was, they or the man started sharing with me what was going on. So this family had been living in their car for a couple of weeks. And when I asked why, because it was quite obvious that the guy had a job, he was putting a suit on to go to work. He had explained to me that they had lived in a house in the west side of Phoenix for the last 15 years. And for 15 years, their landlord had never raised their rent, and they had paid their rent on time month after month. They took great care of the home, and they were happy. The kids had made some friends. They had made friends. The whole situation was ideal. And one day they get a knock on the door. And when they answer the door, somebody hands them some papers, and it is a 30-day notice to vacate. What had happened is the person who owns their home, their landlord, had sold their home, had sold the house to an investor, and hadn't told them about it, hadn't said anything. And they found out that the home had been sold from the investor who had bought it. Now, that really resonated with me because I've bought over at least 1,000 homes with that same story, where a landlord didn't want the tenant that they were housing to know that they were selling the home to me. And they wanted me to deal with the situation once they conveyed the home. If you'd ever been a part of a deal like that, let me know in the chat, because that's a real thing. That was taking place. And the reality is as I'm looking at this situation, because I've been a party to transactions like that, I couldn't help but understand where they were going, what they were going through. And I had asked, okay, well, what were you paying for rent? And they were like, well, we were paying $1,500 for rent. And, it was a 3-bedroom home. It was a good size. It had all the things, a 2-car garage. And then when we came back to the market to see what we could get for $1,500, nothing existed. In fact, a house that was like 500 square foot smaller in the same neighborhood now costs $3,000 a month to rent. And because she was taking care of the kids and doing that whole thing, only one of them could work, which was him. And he was working as many hours as he could possibly work. Plus, they didn't have money to send the kids to childcare, so mom needed to stay home. And so this is their situation. And they could not afford $3,000 a month in rent. They just couldn't do it. And so that was real, right in front of me. So I asked if they would let me know the address of the home that they had once lived in. And they told me the address. And I go into my phone and I put that address into the search of my Gmail, and I see that house on a wholesale list that my company sent out. We're the ones who sold that home. And so there it was, full circle, on my doorstep. On my doorstep. On my doorstep. The result of my life's work. Now, I don't say this and tell this story to make us as wholesalers feel bad about what we're doing, because what we're doing is a necessity in the business. It's a requirement. But what I share it for is so that we have an understanding that we all have an obligation to be a contributor to our community. That's the reason why I got involved in the world of co-living, because I believe that for every home that I've taken off of the market, I owe a responsibility. I owe a unit back. And so my goal is to, at one point and at some point in my life, to be a part of bringing back at least 7,000 affordable housing units to my community. That's my commitment to myself. That's my commitment to my community. And I'm going to make that a reality. I'm going to make it a reality. Now, again, this connectivity, right? The reality that everything is connected. Every decision we make, every thought we have, every emotion that we feel is connected to not only each other, but to this incredible web that we live in, this world that we think is just so random, so chaotic. It is an orchestra, a symphony. Now, that symphony can be a noise, it can be terribleness, it can be lonely, it can be nails on a chalkboard if that's what you want to see. Or it can be Beethoven's symphony if that's the perspective you decide to take. So, what will it be for you? How do you choose to see? What notes are you resonating with and listening to? And what is the ultimate song that your life is singing? So on this Sunday, I'd love for all of us to take a minute and to really think about those things that we're holding on to, those ideas that we're grasping too hard, too close. Are we sending out a prayer to what connects us? Or are we reinforcing that which tears us apart? It's your choice. You get to decide. I know what I'm doing. All right. I hope you guys have a beautiful rest of your day. And for a moment, I pray that you have an opportunity to see the connectivity, to see the beautiful orchestra around you, to see all the ways that God is supporting you in your life, to see all of the blessings, to shed that victim story, to leave it behind you, to surrender so that you may find everything that you've been looking for. Peace.